And Robert Crane was ready. He knew it. Everybody knew the dialogue. Nobody said, "What's my line?" Nobody. It was just a joy, great joy.
You think you know Hogan's Heroes as the lighthearted sitcom where clever POWs outwit bumbling Nazis. But the real story behind that laugh track will leave you speechless. Bob Crane, Werner Klemperer, and John Banner weren't just actors playing World War II characters. They were Holocaust survivors, Jewish refugees, and damaged souls using comedy to process traumas too horrific to speak about directly. What you're about to discover goes far beyond sitcom nostalgia. Concentration camp survivors applying makeup over their Auschwitz tattoos, a lead actor's secret life that ended in brutal murder, and a show so controversial that network executives feared it would destroy their careers. The barbed wire was fake, but the pain behind every joke was heartbreakingly real. Bob Crane, Colonel Robert Hogan. Bob Crane's portrayal of the charismatic Colonel Hogan made him one of television's most beloved leading men. But beneath that charming smile lurked obsessions and compulsions that would ultimately lead to one of Hollywood's most notorious unsolved murders. Crane wasn't just playing a cunning hero. He was hiding a double life that shocked even the entertainment industry's most jaded insiders. Crane's transformation into Colonel Hogan seemed effortless, bringing charm and intelligence to a character who had to make audiences forget they were watching comedy set in a Nazi prison camp. His background in radio and drumming gave him natural timing and musicality that translated into Hogan's quick wit and unflappable confidence. But this public persona masked a growing addiction to sex and technology that consumed his private life. The most disturbing aspect of Crane's hidden life was his obsession with documenting sexual encounters using cutting-edge video technology. In an era before home video became commonplace, Crane was an early adopter of recording equipment, filling his home with cameras and videotapes that captured explicit footage. This compulsion went far beyond typical Hollywood promiscuity. It represented a technological voyeurism that alienated his family and colleagues. Crane's marriage to his first wife, Anne, deteriorated as his fame grew and his obsessions intensified. His colleagues on Hogan's Heroes began noticing changes in his behavior. Late arrivals to set, distraction during rehearsals, and increasing association with unsavory characters who fed his darker appetites. The wholesome image projected on screen contrasted sharply with the reality of his personal deterioration. The brutal end came in 1978, 7 years after Hogan's Heroes ended, when Crane was found bludgeoned to death in a Scottsdale, Arizona apartment. The murder weapon was never found, and despite strong suspicions about his friend John Carpenter, no one was ever convicted. The case remains one of Hollywood's most chilling unsolved mysteries, forever linking Crane's cheerful television legacy with violent, unexplained death. Werner Klemperer, Colonel Wilhelm Klink. Werner Klemperer's decision to play Colonel Klink, the incompetent Nazi commandant, carried profound irony that audiences never fully understood. He was a Jewish refugee whose family had fled Hitler's Germany, now returning to portray the very regime that had destroyed his world. This wasn't just acting, it was a form of revenge through mockery. Klemperer's father, Otto Klemperer, was a renowned conductor whose career was systematically destroyed by the Nazis because of his Jewish heritage. The family escaped to America in 1933, but they left behind colleagues, friends, and a cultural world that the Third Reich obliterated. Young Werner grew up in exile, watching his father struggle to rebuild a career while mourning everything they had lost. When offered the role of Colonel Klink, Klemperer insisted on a contractual clause that stunned producers. Klink could never succeed at anything. He demanded that every scheme fail, every order backfire, and every appearance of competence be revealed as incompetence. This wasn't actor ego, it was moral necessity. Klemperer would only participate if the show portrayed Nazis as complete buffoons, incapable of success or dignity. The psychological complexity of playing a Nazi while his own family members had perished in concentration camps weighed on Klemperer constantly. He later described the role as therapeutic, allowing him to diminish and humiliate the ideology that had caused such suffering. Every time Klink bumbled or was outwitted by prisoners, Klemperer felt he was honoring those who hadn't survived. What few viewers realized was Klemperer's extraordinary musical talent. He was an accomplished concert violinist and conductor, following his father's artistic legacy. This classical training informed Klink's pretensions to culture, making the character's incompetence even more pathetic and laughable. Klemperer's hidden sophistication made Klink's buffoonery devastating rather than merely silly. John Banner, Sergeant Hans Schultz. John Banner's jovial portrayal of Sergeant Schultz, the lovable guard who sees nothing and knows nothing, masked perhaps the darkest secret of anyone connected to Hogan's Heroes. Banner's own family had been murdered in Nazi concentration camps, making every episode a confrontation with the regime that had destroyed everyone he loved. Banner was born Johann Banner in Vienna, Austria, and experienced Nazi occupation firsthand before managing to escape to America in 1938. His Jewish family members who remained behind were not so fortunate. Most perished in the Holocaust, victims of the very system Banner now portrayed for comedy. The psychological weight of playing a Nazi guard while his relatives had been murdered by actual Nazi guards is almost incomprehensible. The most heartbreaking aspect of Banner's performance was how he transformed personal tragedy into therapeutic comedy. His famous catchphrase, "I know nothing," became both comic gold and psychological survival mechanism. A way of processing unspeakable trauma through repetitive performance that allowed him to control and diminish what had once held absolute power over his life. Banner's physical appearance became inseparable from Schultz's character. His substantial weight and round face made him appear harmless and buffoonish. But this wasn't just casting luck. Banner's appearance had been shaped by years of emotional eating, a response to trauma and loss that manifested in physical form. Every time audiences laughed at Schultz's rotund figure, they were unknowingly laughing at the physical manifestation of grief. What production kept carefully hidden was Banner's periodic emotional breakdowns on set, moments when the reality of what he was portraying overwhelmed his professional composure. Cast members learned to recognize when Banner needed space, stepping away from the Nazi uniform and barbed wire set to compose himself before returning to deliver comedy born from unbearable pain. Robert Clary, Corporal Louis LeBeau. Robert Clary's journey from Auschwitz survivor to sitcom star represents one of entertainment history's most remarkable and disturbing paradoxes. A man who wore concentration camp tattoo number A5714 on his arm spent 6 seasons playing a French POW in a comedy about Nazi imprisonment. Clary was deported to Auschwitz at age 16, surviving multiple concentration camps while 12 family members, including his parents and 10 siblings, were murdered in the gas chambers. His survival came partly through entertaining fellow prisoners and guards with singing and comedy, discovering that humor could create momentary humanity even in hell's heart. The most shocking aspect of Clary's involvement with Hogan's Heroes was his daily makeup routine, covering the Auschwitz tattoo on his forearm before filming. This ritual transformation from Holocaust survivor to television entertainer required psychological compartmentalization that few could imagine sustaining. Yet Clary later described the show as therapeutic, allowing him to laugh at the regime that had stolen everything from him. What distinguished Clary from other cast members was his lifelong commitment to Holocaust education. After the series ended, he became a tireless speaker, showing audiences his tattoo and describing the camps with unflinching honesty. He wrote a memoir detailing his survival and spent decades ensuring that entertainment success didn't erase historical memory. Richard Dawson, Corporal Peter Newkirk. Richard Dawson brought authentic British charm to Corporal Newkirk, but his presence on Hogan's Heroes carried its own peculiar irony. He was the only genuinely British actor portraying Allied POWs in a cast otherwise composed of Americans playing British or American characters alongside Holocaust survivors playing Nazis. Dawson's background in British variety entertainment and comedy gave him natural timing that meshed perfectly with the show's ensemble dynamics. His Cockney accent and working-class mannerisms provided authentic texture that grounded the fantastic premise in recognizable reality, making audiences believe that these diverse personalities could actually function as a cohesive resistance unit. What made Dawson invaluable behind the scenes was his role as diplomatic mediator among strong personalities with vastly different backgrounds and trauma histories. He understood how to defuse tensions between method-trained actors and variety performers, between Holocaust survivors processing trauma through comedy and American actors approaching the material as straightforward entertainment. Dawson's accent coaching for American cast members who needed to sound convincingly British or European created another layer of authenticity. He worked particularly closely with Larry Hovus, helping him develop Carter's American accent patterns that would be recognizable to British POWs. The show launched Dawson's American television career in ways he never anticipated, eventually leading to his iconic role as Family Feud host. But he always credited Hogan's heroes with teaching him how to balance comedy with respect for serious subject matter, lessons that informed his later work. Larry Hovus and Ivan Dixon. Larry Hovus and Ivan Dixon represented two different but equally significant dimensions of Hogan's hero's cultural impact. Hovus as the seemingly dim demolitions expert whose hidden intelligence subverted stereotypes, and Dixon as one of television's first prominent black characters in a drama setting during the Civil Rights era. Hovus' Sergeant Carter was deliberately written as more intelligent than his bumbling exterior suggested, creating comedy through the contrast between his nervous demeanor and his actual technical expertise. Hovus brought genuine academic intelligence to the role. He had studied music and theater at university and understood how to play intelligence disguised as incompetence. Dixon's presence as Sergeant Kinchlow broke significant ground for 1960s television, portraying a black soldier as an essential, competent member of an integrated military unit at a time when American society was still fighting over civil rights. His character operated radio equipment, participated in planning, and was treated as an equal by his fellow prisoners. Revolutionary for mainstream entertainment. The most controversial aspect of Dixon's involvement was his departure before the final season, reportedly over salary disputes and frustration with limited character development. Dixon felt that Kinchlow deserved more substantial storylines that reflected the character's intelligence and competence, but producers were hesitant to expand roles that might alienate certain audience segments. The controversial premise. The decision to create a sitcom set in a Nazi POW camp represents one of television history's most audacious creative gambles, and the secrets behind its development reveal network executives terrified of the backlash they were certain would destroy their careers. CBS executives initially rejected the concept multiple times, calling it tasteless, offensive, and commercial suicide. The idea of extracting comedy from Nazi Germany seemed impossible just 20 years after World War II ended, with Holocaust revelations still fresh in public consciousness and millions of veterans alive who had actually experienced POW camps. What changed their minds was the involvement of Jewish creators and Holocaust survivors who argued that comedy could be a legitimate form of resistance and processing. Show creators Bernard Fine and Al Ruddy, along with producer Edward H. Feldman, made the case that depicting Nazis as incompetent buffoons served an important cultural purpose, diminishing the mythology of Nazi efficiency and superiority through relentless mockery. German reception proved equally complex. The show was initially banned in Germany, then later broadcast with significant success, suggesting that German audiences appreciated seeing their parents' generation portrayed as incompetent rather than efficiently evil. Production secrets and legacy. The Stalag 13 set constructed on the Desilu Productions lot became one of television's most elaborate standing sets. But the secrets of its creation reveal how carefully producers tried to balance authenticity with comedy requirements. The barbed wire, guard towers, and barracks were designed using actual POW camp photographs and consultant input from former prisoners and guards. Production designer Robert Claver insisted on authentic details that would satisfy veterans while remaining suitable for a soundstage comedy. The result was a space that felt genuinely confining and institutional while remaining brightly lit enough for multi-camera sitcom filming. Historical consultants included former POWs who advised on everything from escape tunnel construction to daily camp routines. Their involvement provided authenticity that helped deflect criticism about trivializing prisoner experiences, though some veterans remained uncomfortable with comedy drawn from their trauma. Censorship battles with network standards departments occurred regularly over acceptable Nazi jokes and violence depictions. Producers had to navigate constantly shifting boundaries about how much villainy could be portrayed before it stopped being funny, and how much success the Nazis could have before the show became morally problematic. Hogan's heroes proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon against evil is laughter. Holocaust survivors didn't just play Nazis, they conquered them through comedy, turning history's darkest chapter into defiant, healing humor. Subscribe to discover more incredible untold stories from television's most controversial and groundbreaking shows.